Welcome to the Small Biz Junkie podcast. Today we're going to do something really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to take a deep dive into this book. It's over a century old,
Wow.
but it's got like these really modern ideas about making money. It's called The Science of Getting Rich
Okay.
by Wallace D. Wattles, and it was published like way back in 1910.
Hmm.
We're going to be pulling all our insights like straight from the Project Gutenberg ebook.
Right.
And what we're going to try to do is like unearth these principles that can help anyone listening, whether they're running a small business or freelancing, or even just interested in like how to be successful financially, and hopefully give you a new, more powerful way of thinking about it.
Makes sense.
So really our mission today is to dive deep into those core concepts that Wattles talks about and really see like what makes them so powerful even after all this time.
Yeah, I think what's so striking about this book, especially for anyone who's, looking for some practical advice, is that Wattles is just so straightforward with it.
Right.
Like, he comes right out and says, this isn't just some theoretical, philosophical thing. It's a manual.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guide for you, for anyone who needs to get rich, like now.
Yeah.
And he's speaking directly to you, the person who wants to see those results.
Right.
And who's ready to take those conclusions and actually use them.
Yes.
Without getting too bogged down in the philosophical weeds, I guess.
Yeah, and it really sets the stage for like the whole book and actually for our conversation with you right now.
Exactly.
And he may be practical, but he does start with like a really important foundational idea, even if he suggests you can kind of explore it more later on.
Yeah, I think it's important.
He talks about a monistic theory of the universe.
Okay.
So it's like this idea of a single substance, right? And that this substance is like the source of all these different forms in the material world that we see around us.
That's a big idea.
It is.
Yeah.
He traces this idea, he traces it way back, like to Hindu philosophy.
Mm.
And he even points out that thinkers like Descartes, Spinoza, Emerson, they've all kind of touched on similar ideas.
Yeah, those are some pretty influential thinkers.
Yeah, they are. And for anyone who wants to get more into like the philosophical underpinnings, he even recommends checking out Hegel and Emerson.
Nice.
So, okay, let's break this down a bit.
Great.
How does this whole idea of one fundamental substance connect to, like, you actually getting rich?
Right. Well, if you connect it to what Wattles is saying, this substance, this thinking stuff,
Right.
it's like the source of everything, right? It's
Yeah.
this universal, like, field of potential. And our thoughts, your thoughts, actually have the power to shape it, to, provide the blueprint that then becomes the things you imagine.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So this philosophical foundation actually supports a really powerful idea for you,
Yeah.
which is that your mental world
Yes.
directly impacts, like tangibly impacts, the physical world.
And that becomes like the foundation for his whole science of getting rich.
Exactly.
And, right off the bat, he talks about something that might be on a lot of people's minds, and that's like, is it even okay to want to be rich?
That's a good question.
He's like very clear that this desire for wealth is not wrong. And in fact, he says it's like a natural human aspiration.
Yeah.
It's this desire for a richer life, a more fulfilling life, and a more abundant life. And it's inherently good.
Right.
He goes on to say that a truly complete life, one that allows for your mental, spiritual, and physical development, requires having enough money to like get the things you need.
Yeah, I could see that.
He even says that the science of getting rich is the foundation for all human advancement. Like, that's a pretty big statement.
It is, but
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense if you think about, his definition of a complete life.
Yeah.
He sees the development of your mind, your soul, and your body as like the core perquin of life, right?
Right.
And in a world where money is how we exchange goods and services,
Yeah.
having enough of it becomes like essential for that development.
Yeah.
So understanding how to get rich, it's not just about you personally getting more money.
All right.
It's actually about you being able to live fully and contribute to like the progress of society.
That's a great point. And here's where it gets like really interesting.
Oh, tell me.
Waddle says that there is a science of getting rich.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a precise science, just like algebra or arithmetic.
Okay.
It's governed by very specific, predictable laws.
Interesting.
And he claims that by learning and applying these laws, anyone can become rich with like mathematical certainty.
For anyone.
anyone, regardless of their circumstances, talents, even, how thrifty they are, what other people are doing.
Okay.
It all comes down to doing things in a certain way.
Hmm. It almost sounds a little too simple.
Yeah, it does. And, Wattles kind of anticipates that.
Okay.
He addresses the skepticism by saying, getting rich isn't primarily about your environment because you see people who are wealthy and people who are poor living right next to each other.
Right.
It's not just about talent either.
That's true.
Yeah.
There are lots of talented people who struggle
Yeah,
financially.
exactly.
And there are people who, maybe don't have those same natural gifts, but they still end up wealthy.
Exactly. And he also, dismisses the idea that just saving money is the key.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of people who are very thrifty, they never actually get rich.
Right, right.
So his conclusion is there's this certain way of thinking and acting that's the real difference maker.
That makes sense.
Now, another thing that he talks about, that people might be worried about even today is there even enough opportunity?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
With established businesses and competitive markets, is there even space for someone new to get rich?
Mm-hmm.
He acknowledged back then in 1910 that some things, like major railroad systems, might seem closed off.
Yeah, those were pretty established back then.
Right. But he pointed out that new opportunities were emerging all the time.
Oh, like what?
Like electric railways back then.
Oh, yeah.
And he kind of suggests that new industries will always be popping up. He even mentions air transportation, even though, of course, that wasn't really a thing back then.
Wow, that's pretty forward thinking.
Yeah, it is. And he also highlights agriculture as a field with a lot of potential. But his main point is nobody's poor because there isn't enough wealth to go around.
I see.
Because this original substance, this field of potential we talked about, it's infinite. It's inexhaustible, and it always responds to human needs and desires. What stands out to you about that perspective on opportunity?
Well, I think what's really insightful there is that he focuses on abundance.
What?
It's not about, this limited pie where if someone gets a bigger piece,
Yeah.
someone else gets a smaller one.
Yeah.
It's about this unlimited supply. So you're not competing for scarce resources. You're actually creating from an infinite source.
That's a really important point, and it's really at the heart of his whole certain way, this whole approach.
Absolutely.
Okay, now we get to, the very first principle of his science.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's the power of thought.
The power of thought.
Wattles is very clear about this. He says that thought is the only power that can create actual riches from this formless substance, from this, thinking stuff that permeates everything.
So our thoughts actually create.
He says when you have a thought of a specific form and you impress that thought on this substance, it brings that form into being.
Wow.
And he lays out 3 fundamental things that he wants you to believe, with absolute conviction.
Okay, what are they?
First, that this thinking stuff, this substance actually exists. Second, that the power of thought within it can create anything that you can imagine. And third, that you have the ability to impress your thoughts onto it and start that creative process.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. And he even says, put aside any ideas that conflict with this.
He doesn't mess around.
He doesn't. What do you make of that?
Well, I think he's really highlighting how important our thoughts are.
Yes.
If you buy into this idea,
Yeah.
then being able to clearly imagine what you want and hold that image in your mind, that's the first step to making it real.
Right. And this call for absolute faith, I think it emphasizes that you have to really commit to this, without any doubt.
You have to go all in.
You have to go all in.
Okay.
Now, he introduces this really interesting concept called increasing life.
Increasing life.
He explains that this intelligent substance, it wants more life in everything, and that includes you.
Okay.
So it wants you to have all the things that you can use to experience more of life. And he even puts it in a spiritual context. He says it's basically God's desire that you become rich so that God can express himself more fully through you.
That's a powerful idea.
It is, but then he adds this important qualification. He says, this desire for riches, it should be in harmony with this overall purpose of increase.
Okay.
It should be focused on genuine life and fulfilling your purpose, not just about selfish indulgence or denying yourself everything.
So it's not just about getting more and more stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a key takeaway here is he emphasizes creation over competition.
What does that mean?
He says, you don't need to take anything from anyone else to become rich.
I like that.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a really important nuance
Yeah.
because it changes how we think about getting rich.
Yeah.
It's not this selfish thing. It's actually a positive force for growth and expression.
Right.
And not just for you, but for like the whole universe.
Exactly. And by focusing on creation, not competition, he's basically saying there's a path to abundance that doesn't depend on scarcity or exploiting other people.
And that really connects back to that idea of an inexhaustible supply
Yeah.
that's available to everyone.
Exactly. Now, you might be wondering, how do these riches actually show up in your life?
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, Waddle says it's not like things just magically appear out of thin air.
Okay, good.
It actually happens through the power of this supreme intelligence working through other people. So for you, that means you need to have a very clear and definite mental image of what you want, and you need to believe completely that it's either being created right now
Right.
or it's already on its way to you.
So you have to like really believe it.
You have to really believe it. He uses this great analogy. He compares it to a child who feels music inside them,
Yeah,
but they're struggling to play an instrument. He's suggesting that this original substance is always looking for ways to express itself through us, through humanity.
I see.
And he encourages you to ask for a lot, for what you really want, because that aligns with this desire for greater expression and more life.
That's encouraging.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I think the important thing to remember is that we still have a role to play in this process.
Right.
Like the substance is there, the creative impulse is there, but it often needs us, our actions, to actually manifest in the physical world.
Right. So our thoughts are like the blueprint, and our actions help to build it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your clear mental image and your unwavering faith, they're like a directive that influences the flow of events, even the actions of other people, and ultimately brings what you want towards you.
Okay, now let's talk about gratitude.
Gratitude.
This is a big one for Wattles. He says it's the key to having a good relationship with this formless intelligence. He wants you to believe that this substance is already giving you everything you desire and to feel deeply grateful for that connection.
Interesting.
He says that this feeling of gratitude keeps you connected to the source of wealth. And it stops you from falling into a competitive mindset because you're focused on abundance, not scarcity.
That's a good point.
And he even talks about a law of gratitude,
The law of gratitude.
where your thankfulness creates a reaction that actually pulls what you want towards you. So why do you think gratitude is so important in his system?
Well, I think gratitude does a few things here. First, it aligns you, like mentally and emotionally, with the abundance and the positive flow that Wattles is describing. So instead of focusing on what you don't have, you appreciate what you do have and what's coming.
Yes?
And that strengthens your faith and makes you more expectant of receiving even more good things.
Makes sense.
And then second, by focusing on how everything's connected and expressing thanks, you avoid that trap of thinking competitively.
Right.
And that belief in scarcity, which Wattles says, is a big obstacle to the creative process.
Right.
So it's about creating this positive feedback loop between your mind and this formless substance.
That's a really powerful concept.
It is.
Okay, now Wattles gets into thinking in a certain way.
Thinking in a certain way.
What this means is you need to create a very clear, very specific mental picture of what you want,
Okay.
like down to the details. And then you hold that image in your mind constantly with the same focus that a sailor keeps on their destination.
So like laser focus.
Exactly. But what's really important is that this vision needs to be backed by your purpose to make it real and an unwavering faith that is already yours. Wattles even says you should mentally live in this new reality as if it's already physically true and feel grateful for it in advance.
So it's not just like daydreaming.
No, not at all. It's about really embodying that reality in your mind, which then sets the wheels in motion in the physical world.
Okay.
And he emphasizes that you should put all your desires into a single coherent whole and impress this whole desire onto the formless substance with like unshakable purpose and faith.
So it's not just repeating the same prayers over and over.
No, it's much more active than that. It's about a very deliberate and focused intention.
I see.
Okay, now let's talk about the role of willpower.
Willpower. Interesting.
Wattles says that the way to use your willpower is to apply it to yourself.
To myself.
Yeah, like to force yourself to think and do the right things, the things that are in line with this certain way.
Okay.
But he warns against trying to use willpower to control other people or to like force things to happen through sheer will.
So it's more about self-control than controlling others.
Exactly. He says that doubt and unbelief actually push your desired outcome away from you, while faith and purpose pull it towards you. So it's really important to guard your thoughts and focus on wealth and abundance, not on poverty and lack.
Right.
He even has this interesting take on charity.
Oh, what's that?
He says that the best way to help people who are poor is to become rich yourself and inspire them by your example.
That's definitely a different way of looking at it.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think it comes back to that idea of focusing on abundance and creation.
Right.
Wattles believes that if you focus on poverty, even if you're trying to help, you're actually reinforcing that mental image of lack.
Right.
So instead, he wants you to focus on creating wealth in your own life, which then becomes an example for others to follow.
It's like you embody what's possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that idea of directing your willpower inward, I think that's really crucial. It's about mastering your own thoughts and actions, not trying to manipulate the world around you.
That's a really good point. He goes on to talk about how to keep a clear vision of wealth.
Okay.
And that involves avoiding anything that contradicts that vision, whether it's something you see in the world around you or something that you imagine in your own mind.
Like negative thoughts.
Exactly. He says, don't dwell on past financial troubles or hard times. Instead, focus on the idea of the world becoming richer and richer. And when you think about people who are struggling financially, see them as becoming wealthy too. Offer encouragement and congratulations instead of pity. And he really stresses that becoming truly rich is a noble goal, and it includes everyone's betterment.
So it's a very expansive view of wealth.
It is. And he really wants you to keep your attention fixed on that picture of abundance and block out anything that might dim that vision.
It's like creating a mental sanctuary for your goals.
It is. It takes a lot of mental discipline. Now, this leads us to acting in the certain way.
Acting in the certain way, okay.
Wattles is very clear that thinking the right way is the creative power, but you also need to take action.
Right, you can't just sit around and think about
No,
it.
you can't. Your thoughts can pull what you want towards you, but you have to be ready to receive it when it arrives.
Okay.
And this action, he says, should be in the present moment.
Now.
And it should be within your current situation, like your business, your job, your environment. He stresses that you shouldn't wait for perfect conditions.
Right, just get started.
Exactly. And use your present situation as a stepping stone to that better future you're envisioning. It's about bridging that gap between your thoughts and the real world.
I get it. It's about making your thoughts concrete.
Exactly. And then he gets into efficient action.
Efficient action.
This isn't just about doing a lot of things. It's about the quality of each action you take.
Ah, so it's not about being busy. It's about being effective.
Exactly. He says every action should be a success in itself.
How do you do that?
By keeping your vision in mind while you're doing it and putting all your faith and purpose into it. He says successful action is cumulative, so every little thing adds up.
I see.
So you should do your best every day and use your free time to really solidify your vision in your mind.
So it's about being intentional with your actions and really focusing on your goals.
Exactly. Now, he also talks about getting into the right business.
What does he mean by that?
He says you'll be more successful and happier doing work that you actually want to do, because that desire is a sign that you have the power to do it well.
So follow your passion.
In a way, yes. He says that if you think about your vision and feel grateful, it will align your mind with that supreme intelligence and give you guidance for your actions.
Interesting.
And opportunities that fit with your vision will come up more and more as you follow this certain way.
But you have to keep the faith.
You do. You have to maintain that faith and gratitude. He says, act perfectly every day without rushing or worrying or being afraid.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It is. And he reminds us that when we hurry, we shift from being a creator to being a competitor.
That's a good point.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think what's really powerful there is that he's saying our desires are a guide.
Yeah.
They're not just random. They actually point to the things we're good at or have the potential to be good at.
Right. So trust your gut.
Yeah, and by following those desires and staying connected to that creative source through gratitude and faith, you'll start to see opportunities that are perfect for you.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, finally, he talks about the impression of increase.
The impression of increase.
He says this is a feeling of expansion and growth that you should project in all your interactions.
Okay.
He says that everyone is looking for increase. It's like the fundamental drive of the universe.
Right.
So you should act with the conviction that you are an advancing personality and that you're helping everyone you interact with to advance as well.
So it's about, like, radiating abundance.
Exactly. He says, feel like you're getting richer and making others richer at the same time. But don't boast about it.
Be humble.
Right. Let your actions and your tone of voice show that you are already wealthy. And he warns against trying to control others because the competitive mindset is not the creative mindset.
So it's about lifting everyone up, not trying to get ahead at their expense.
Exactly. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think this is about creating a positive ripple effect. When you project that energy of abundance and growth, you attract other people who are on the same wavelength.
Right. You attract what you put out.
Exactly. And by avoiding that desire for power over others, it reinforces that idea that true wealth is about creating more, not taking from others.
Right. It's a win-win situation.
Exactly.
Now, he ends by saying that these principles apply to any job or profession.
Anyone can do this.
Anyone can do this. He says that when you give others the impression of increase, you'll attract success in your field.
Okay.
And he emphasizes that combining a clear vision with faith, purpose, and action, that's an unbeatable formula.
Sounds like it.
He even says that people who work for someone else can still get rich by having that clear mental picture, acting with faith and purpose, and putting that energy of success into everything they do, not just to please their boss, but to advance themselves.
So it's about taking ownership of your own success.
Exactly.
Right.
And in his last section, he gives some warnings and final thoughts.
Okay.
He says that a lot of people will doubt this whole science of getting rich.
Yeah, it can be hard to believe.
It can. They'll think that there's only so much wealth to go around and that things need to change in society for people to get ahead. But he insists that individuals can become wealthy no matter what the system is by following this certain way.
Okay.
And he says that eventually this way of thinking and acting will actually change the system itself.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
It is. He really stresses that you need to focus on the creative plane, never see supply as limited, and never act competitively.
Right, so it's about abundance and collaboration.
Exactly. And he says, if you catch yourself falling back into old ways of thinking, correct yourself right away.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. And don't worry about future problems. Focus on what you can do today.
Stay present.
Stay present.
Yeah.
And never speak negatively or discouragingly.
Okay.
He also says, train yourself to see the world as always becoming, always evolving, and to see things that seem bad as just undeveloped good.
That's a really interesting way of looking at things.
Yep, it is. And he says, never let yourself get discouraged. Even if things seem to be going wrong, you can still achieve great success if you keep your faith and purpose.
So perseverance is key.
Perseverance is key. And he says you'll develop the talents you need as you go along.
That's encouraging.
It is. He really wants you to study this book, make it your companion, and really focus on the principles, avoiding anything that contradicts them until you're firmly established.
So it's about really immersing yourself in this mindset.
It is. So what do you think overall?
Well, I think it's amazing how these ideas, written so long ago, are still so relevant today.
I agree.
Wattles' emphasis on the power of thought, a clear vision, unwavering faith, gratitude, and taking action. It's really a unique and insightful approach to achieving success and wealth.
And his focus on creation over competition, I think that's a really important message, especially in today's world.
Absolutely.
So for everyone listening, we really encourage you to think about these ideas, how they might apply to your own life, your business, your goals.
Right. How can you use these principles to create the life you want?
Exactly. Imagine what you could achieve if you had a clear mental picture of your goals, a grateful and faithful mindset, and took decisive action.
The possibilities are endless.
They are. And remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more to explore in Wattles' work. We hope this has piqued your interest. And for more resources and discussions on these topics, be sure to visit our website, www.smallbizjunkie.com. You'll find lots of valuable content there.
Right. Head over to www.smallbizjunkie.com to learn more.
Thank you for listening to the Small Biz Junkie podcast.